The third time Jessica demanded divorce, it was all because of Alex. When Jessica asked for a divorce for the third time, I finally agreed. But then, she seemed to have second thoughts. "Don't play hard to get," she snapped. "I'm not joking around." Looking at the face I'd adored for 5 long years, I smiled. For the first time in ages, I felt a strange sense of relief. "Neither am I replied. "Let's get this divorce over with." Jessica's eyes turned icy as she stared at my signature on the divorce papers. "Are you serious?" she asked. When I didn't answer, she looked up, her eyes a storm of mixed emotions. "I'm not kidding, Ethan. Don't play games with me. I've seen all these tricks before." I bowed my head, trying to recall the sound of Jessica's laughter, but the memory had faded into a hazy blur. When had she stopped even bothering to smile at me? Maybe it was on our wedding day. After all, she'd married a man she didn't love, and then, when her true love, Alex, came back, she was stuck with me, unable to break free. She had every reason to resent me. Why would she ever smile for me? I took a deep breath and met her gaze. "Yes, I'm serious. I agree to the divorce." Jessica furrowed her brow and took a step closer, as if trying to figure out if I was pulling a prank. "Ethan, this is your last chance." Her eyes were as cold as ever. I knew she was just checking to make sure I wouldn't back out. Everyone knew that as soon as the divorce was finalized, she and Alex were planning to jet off abroad. For so many late nights, I'd imagined this moment, and it had always filled me with heartache. But now that it was actually happening, I felt an unexpected lightness. Turns out, I really could let go. "Jessica," I said softly. For a split second, there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a knowing look. "I knew you couldn't let go." Before she could finish, I took off the necklace around my neck and placed it in her palm. Once, during a heated argument, I'd asked her why she never wore a wedding ring. That night, she'd had too much to drink, and she'd looked at me with a longing I'd never seen before. "Only Alex has the right to put a ring on my finger," she'd slurred. "That's why we never exchanged rings at our wedding. The only thing I'd given her was this custom-made necklace, engraved with her name." Jessica's words died in her throat. 5 years ago, I'd married her full of joy, thinking it was the start of a lifetime of happiness. Now, we were ending things. 5 years of mutual suffering were finally coming to an end. Goodbye, Jessica. Before marrying Jessica, I'd never even heard of Alex. It wasn't until our wedding day that I followed her gaze across the room and saw him. He looked so much like me, and in that moment, I realized our whole marriage was a cruel joke. But I loved Jessica too much. After countless internal battles, I'd still chosen to stay by her side. During the wedding toasts, Alex walked up to me with a polite smile. "I've heard so much about you from Jessica," he said casually. "It's great to finally meet you. Thank you for taking care of her all these years. To show my support for you both, I'll drink to that." I stood there stunned. His tone felt like a challenge. I looked at Jessica, but she refused to meet my eyes. Frowning, she grabbed the glass from his hand and downed it in one gulp. In that instant, the way Alex looked at Jessica was all too familiar. It was the way a person looks at the one they love. And yet, I was the one standing beside her. After the reception, as we were seeing off the guests, Alex was the last to leave. His eyes were red, clearly showing he'd been crying. Jessica looked at him with sympathy. Aware of my presence, she held back the comforting words she wanted to say and just let out a sigh. As a taxi pulled up, Jessica and Alex both reached for the door handle at the same time, their hands brushing. Even though Jessica yanked her hand back quickly, I saw the whole thing. "Jessica, are you still wearing the watch I gave you?" Alex asked, a hint of hope in his voice. "Yeah," she replied after a moment. "I got used to it, so I never took it off." They started chatting, lost in memories that only they shared. I just stood there, feeling like an outsider. That's when I first realized our marriage was in trouble. That night, we had our first big fight. I demanded she take off the watch. She just rolled her eyes, looking annoyed. "Stop being so unreasonable," she snapped. "You're a grown man." I stared at her in disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me about your past with Alex?" I shouted, but she just turned away and stayed silent. The silence felt like a knife, slowly cutting away at my patience. Finally, I lost it. I couldn't stand the thought of the woman I loved still holding onto mementos of her ex-lover. I grabbed her shirt and stood on my tiptoes to look her in the eye. "You two were first loves, you kissed, you slept together, you promised forever, And you said your ring finger was reserved for him. Why didn't you tell me any of this? What am I to you? Jessica's face went pale. She pushed me away and tried to leave. I blocked her path, demanding an answer. For the first time, I saw pure disgust in her eyes when she looked at me. Before storming out, she threw one last sentence at me. Ethan, if something was going to happen between Alex and me, it would have happened a long time ago. Did you really think you ever stood a chance? Deep down, I'd always known our marriage was doomed, but I'd held on to hope, day by day. I loved her so much that it clouded my judgment. I couldn't imagine life without her. I thought if I loved her enough, she'd eventually learn to love me back. But maybe I was just deluding myself, or maybe I didn't love her as deeply as I thought. Looking back, if I'd known that it's better to end things quickly than to suffer for a long time, maybe things would have been different. Jessica looked furious, as if I'd done something unforgivable. I couldn't help but scoff. Was she mad because I'd agreed to the divorce too easily? Did it hurt her pride? At this point, I didn't care anymore. Fine, I said, standing up. Let's meet tomorrow morning to finalize everything. As I was waiting for the elevator, Jessica ran out and blocked my way. Ethan, what are you up to? I almost laughed. Even at the end, she thought I had some hidden agenda. What could I possibly be up to? I've just finally realized it's time to let you go and set myself free. I stepped back and gently moved her arm away. Let me make this clear. I agree to the divorce. You don't have to worry about me bothering you. If you're still not sure, we can get lawyers involved tomorrow to draw up a proper agreement. I have no interest in your life with Alex, and I won't cause any trouble. You don't need to be on guard around me. I thought I must have looked so cool in that moment. No, Jessica said, her eyes red. Tell me, why did you agree to the divorce this time? I was a bit taken aback, but answered calmly. I'm just exhausted. Is it because of your birthday? She asked. My birthday? That day had been so painful that I'd tried to forget it. I was surprised she remembered. After all, the first time she'd brought up divorce was right after that day. I'd known Jessica was busy, so I'd planned with her a week in advance to go to the marine park for my birthday. I woke up early, excited, and headed out. We'd agreed to meet at noon, but 1 o'clock came and went, and there was still no sign of her. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Sitting on a bench, I felt a dull pain in my chest. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from a friend. Wow, you two are so romantic, like an old married couple. Attached was a photo taken inside a movie theater. In the picture, Jessica was wearing a white dress, and Alex was wearing the shirt she'd said she was going to buy for me. No wonder my friend thought it was me. We looked so alike. So, while I'd been waiting for her, she'd been watching a movie with him. All the energy drained out of me. I sat in the park until the staff started closing up, then I headed home, defeated. When I got there, Jessica was sitting on the sofa. If I didn't answer, it must have been important, she said, frowning. Look at you. You look like a mess. All the anger I'd been holding in exploded, and we had a huge fight. Jessica looked shocked for a second, then shouted back, Ethan, what do you want? It was just a movie. Can't we celebrate your birthday another time? Even then, she didn't understand why I was so angry. After that day, Jessica started bringing up the divorce more and more. She knew I wouldn't sign the papers, but she'd still show them to me, mocking my reactions and blaming me. Ethan, it's your fault our marriage is like this. If I'd known you were like this, I never would have married you. And now, here she was, bringing up the past again. When I didn't respond, she repeated, Is it because of the birthday? I looked at her. I didn't have the energy to explain anything anymore. Even if I had a million things to say, I didn't care if she heard them or not. She didn't love me, so she'd never prioritize me. If I had to give a reason for our failed marriage, that was it. I smiled faintly. Yes, it's because of my birthday. I gave her the answer she seemed to want. Jessica stood there, looking at me, lost in thought. Her mouth opened, as if she wanted to say more, but she just stayed quiet. Finally, she said, You can keep the house. I immediately went back inside and grabbed my bag. Why argue? Once inside, I watched as Jessica silently packed her things. There wasn't much left for her to take. She'd already moved most of her stuff to Alex's place. Just a few clothes and toiletries were all that remained. I sat on the sofa, feeling strangely calm. Feelings really are strange. Just the day before, I'd wanted to keep her with me at all costs. Now, I was getting impatient with how slowly she was packing. What time tomorrow? I asked. She ignored me, so I asked again, louder. Jessica stood there with her back to me, her hands hanging limply. Jessica, I asked, what time are we getting the divorce? Suddenly, she kicked over the suitcase. She spun around, her eyes filled with a mix of accusation, blame, hurt, and confusion. I didn't have the energy to figure it out. First thing in the morning, when the office opens, she snapped. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, I felt a pang of bitterness. It wasn't Jessica I'd miss. It was the part of myself that had loved her so deeply. Maybe I'd never love anyone like that again. I picked up the suitcase she'd kicked over and placed it next to her. It's late. You should go. Ethan, she started, but I cut her off with a sarcastic laugh. It's all my fault, I know. You've said it a million times. I'm sick of hearing it. I smiled, as if I was telling a joke that had nothing to do with me, hiding all the painful memories behind that smile. My mistake was loving someone I shouldn't have and believing things I shouldn't have. I hope you're miserable for the rest of your life. Alex was waiting downstairs to pick her up. Before leaving, Jessica kept turning around. Ethan, I'm leaving. Okay, go. I'm really leaving now. Fine, take care. The third time she tried to stall, I'd had enough. I pushed her out the door and slammed it shut. Through the intercom, I saw her standing in the hallway, looking at her suitcase. I saw the longing in her eyes, but I didn't care. That night, I slept better than I had in ages. The weight on my chest was finally gone. No more nightmares about Alex and Jessica being happy together. It was all over. The next day, Alex walked up the street with Jessica on his arm. I stood there alone. Alex greeted me warmly, like we were friends, but I ignored him and walked straight past them into the Civil Affairs Bureau. It was a weekday morning, and the place wasn't crowded. Jessica and I finished the paperwork quickly. There was a 30-day cooling-off period. In 30 days, I'd be completely free from Jessica. I looked up at the blue sky, feeling a bit dazed. Once, I'd held a marriage registration certificate, dreaming of a future with her, promising to be together forever. Now, Jessica stood beside me in silence, while Alex looked as happy as if he'd won the lottery. It was still early, and I suddenly felt like going to the supermarket and cooking a big meal. Just then, a voice called out from behind me. Ethan. I turned around, and there she was, Lucy. The last time I'd seen her was at my wedding. I remembered that day clearly. The night before the wedding, a friend called to say Lucy had gotten drunk at our usual bar and refused to go home. I talked to her on the phone, and she'd slurred. Ethan, congratulations on getting married. I'm so happy for you. I tried to convince her to go home and rest. If you're happy, why are you drinking so much? You need to be up for the wedding tomorrow. On the wedding day, Lucy showed up as a bridesmaid. She helped me greet the guests, and I'd even joked, "You're so good at this, anyone would think it was your wedding." Lucy just smiled, but my friend had given me a knowing look. Of course she's putting in the effort for you, they'd said. At the time, I was so focused on Jessica that I didn't understand. During the ceremony, as I stood on the platform with Jessica, Lucy's eyes never left me. She'd said, Ethan, I wish you a lifetime of happiness, and then left early. After that, I tried to contact her, but she never replied. Now, 5 years later, seeing her again made me feel a bit dizzy. Lucy laughed and poked my head, just like she used to. You haven't forgotten about me, have you? The smell of her perfume, the same one I'd given her for her birthday, brought me back to the present. For some reason, I felt a flash of anger, which came and went quickly. Why would I remember someone like you? Lucy burst out laughing. Well, then, should we get to know each other again? Her teasing made me smile despite myself. I asked her what she was doing there. I hadn't told anyone but my close friends about the divorce. She just shrugged and said, I guess it's fate. Jessica suddenly interrupted, glaring at Lucy. Even though she didn't say anything, the hostility in her eyes was clear. I ignored her and took out my phone. Since you're back, let's call everyone and meet up tonight. Lucy pulled me closer. No need. I already talked to them. We're meeting at the old bar tonight. Ethan can't drink too much. He had stomach problems last year, Jessica blurted out. I looked at her, confused. What was she doing? Jessica seemed to realize she'd overstepped and quickly looked away. Lucy wasn't going to back down. What gives you the right to butt in? She snapped. Jessica hissed. The cooling-off period isn't over. I'm still his wife. I almost laughed. Just 2 weeks ago, she couldn't wait to divorce me. Lucy looked at Alex, who was looking pale, and sneered. Having second thoughts? Does he even agree with all this? Jessica seemed to finally notice Alex and grabbed his hand. Alex, that's not what I meant. I had to admit, Lucy knew how to get under Jessica's skin. I'd always told Lucy to be careful with her words, but right then, I was glad she was standing up for me, just like she had 5 years ago. Lucy glanced at me, worried I might be upset. You think you can talk to us like that? Alex said, his hand shaking with anger as he pointed at Lucy. Lucy rolled her eyes. At least I know right from wrong. Unlike someone who plays the home wrecker. I couldn't hold back my laughter. It was the first time in ages that I'd felt truly happy. People really are selfish. Alex turned red, knowing he had no leg to stand on. Jessica just stared at me as I laughed. Let's go. Jessica mumbled and turned to leave. Lucy couldn't resist adding, looks like she's ditching you. I stood there, thinking about how Jessica had always looked down on me, criticized me, and belittled me. I'd never complained because I loved her, but now, I didn't care. People are so strange. They chase after something, and then toss it aside when they get it. Our plans changed from the bar to a hot pot restaurant. One of our friends had to work late, so it was just me and Lucy in a private room. The atmosphere was a bit tense. Lucy picked up some cooked duck intestines with her chopsticks and put them in my bowl. I looked at her, surprised. You remembered I like these? I remember everything about you, she said. The room was quiet, except for the bubbling of the hot pot. Steam rose between us, blurring her face, but I could hear my heart. The room was quiet, except for the soft bubbling of the hot pot broth. Steam rose between us, blurring Lucy's face, but I could hear my own heart pounding like a drum. Jessica had always detested gamey smells. She once said that after I ate such foods, I reeked like a barnyard, and it was revolting. After that comment, I'd stopped eating them entirely. I'd contorted myself into someone else to win Jessica's approval, but she'd simply taken it all for granted. She probably didn't even recall those words now. They'd been inconsequential to her. Early the previous year, Alex had moved to Hai Ching, and around the same time, Jessica began staying out almost every night. I could never reach her, never knew where she was. Tonight, though, I indulged in the hot pot with abandon. Duck intestines, chicken gizzards, pork stomach. I stuffed myself, almost defiantly. Lucy just watched me, a gentle smile playing on her lips. The next day, I was roused from sleep by a persistent knocking at the door. I opened it to find Jessica standing there. What is it? I asked. Oh, I forgot some things, she replied. I stepped aside, gesturing impatiently for her to enter. Make it quick. When I settled on the couch, Jessica remained rooted in the doorway. I eyed her, perplexed. Aren't you coming in? She kept her head bowed, something crinkling behind her back. Following the sound, I realized it was the trash bag I discarded the previous night. Where on earth had she dug that up? Disgusted, I got up and blocked the doorway, fearing she'd bring that mess inside. Jessica seemed stung by my reaction, freezing in place. You don't want any of this? She asked, referring to the gifts she'd once given me. Now in that trash bag, tokens of our short-lived and ill-fated love. Things I'd once cherished but now found repugnant at the mere thought. Yeah, it's just clutter, I said nonchalantly. She stood there for a long moment, then suddenly tore open the bag, dumping its contents onto the floor. She crouched down, hands frantically rummaging through the pile. These are the photo booth pictures from our first date. This is the bracelet I gave you when we first got together. These are the plaster dolls we painted together. Finally, she pulled out the necklace engraved with her name. Even this, you don't want it anymore? In that instant, her expression was so forlorn that I knew if I nodded, she'd break down in tears. I nodded anyway. Yep. Don't want it. Take it if you like. You might even get a few bucks selling it for scrap. At my words, a faint glimmer of hope sparked in her eyes, and she forced a pained smile. Can I really take it? Looking utterly pathetic, Jessica knelt on the floor, scooping the discarded items back into the ripped bag, handful by handful. I rolled my eyes, and she caught the gesture. When I returned from the kitchen with a glass of water, she was standing by the door again, eyes brimming with unshed tears. Could I have a bag? My stomach was growling, and I had no patience for this. I turned and pointed into the kitchen. There's one on the table. Help yourself. Jessica fumbled around at the door for a while before finally coming in. Seeing me cooking in the kitchen, she silently took a seat at the dining table. She stared at my back, lost in thought. I called her name several times before she snapped out of it. offering me an apologetic smile. Sorry, I just remembered how you used to cook for me in the kitchen like this. We were so happy then. Jessica, I cut her off sharply. Have you gathered your things? Yes. Then is there anything else? I was blatantly telling her to leave. She hesitated, then glanced at the dishes on the table. Could I stay for dinner? I stared at her, shocked, then looked at the food: braised pig brains, stir, fried duck hearts, scallion fried tripe. Didn't she loathe such things? To prevent her from doing anything else irritating, I shut her down firmly. It's not convenient. You should go. Jessica sensed my annoyance. You really don't want to spend even a single more second with me, do you? You don't even want to talk to me. She gave a bitter laugh. So you really hate me this much? I lowered my gaze, pondering her words. Did I hate Jessica? Not really. She'd already drained every ounce of affection I'd once held for her. So, even after all we'd been through, I didn't hate her. I just wanted nothing more to do with her ever again. My silence said it all, and after a long, awkward standoff, Jessica finally picked up her torn bag and prepared to leave. As she reached the door, she suddenly turned back. Ethan, about that day when I said I wanted a divorce, it wasn't really. Her words angered her as she saw Lucy emerge from the bedroom. Not really? Then what was it? Lucy arched an eyebrow, sauntering over to my side and eyeing Jessica with amusement. Jessica's eyes immediately turned bloodshot, and she lunged forward, grabbing a handful of Lucy's hair. What are you doing here? You too. Lucy didn't hold back. She delivered a hard kick to Jessica's stomach. Jessica stumbled and fell backward, clutching her midsection in pain, her face ashen. She frowned, her eyes pleadingly searching mine. Perhaps she was hoping I'd still feel the old pang of sympathy, the way I always had before, no matter how angry I'd been. But now, all I felt was revulsion. Seeing I wasn't moved, Jessica gritted her teeth and struggled to her feet, then swung at Lucy. Stop it! I barked sharply. Jessica froze. Ethan, she hit me. I nodded. Yeah, I saw. Then why aren't you saying anything to her? What? I lowered my head, thinking. Maybe it was favoritism. Even now, the thought sent a dull ache through my heart. I remembered that year at Jessica's company party. She'd attended with Alex. When I arrived, they were locked in an intimate gaze, dancing so closely that it felt like they were in their own world. I'd fought to keep my composure, telling myself that if I caused a scene, Jessica would be furious. When the song ended, Jessica took Alex's hand, and they walked off the stage. Seeing me, Alex let go, offering an apologetic smile. Jessica said you don't like these events, so she asked me to come with her. But the next moment, right in front of me, Jessica took his hand again, her eyes filled with adoration. The dance is still going, she'd said to Alex. Her words shattered my last bit of restraint. I rushed over and pulled Alex away. You can't hold his hand. What are you doing, Jessica? I'd shouted. Jessica had shoved me hard, ignoring the stares of everyone around, and rushed to Alex's side to help him up. I'd looked at her, tears blurring my vision. Jessica, I'm your husband. Who do you choose, him or me? In that moment, she'd looked at me like I was a stranger. Ethan, don't embarrass yourself. The memory was too much. I took a deep breath, trying to push it away. Lucy's kick had been satisfying, and that was that. The past couldn't be changed, and I shouldn't keep dwelling on it. Let's eat, I said. Lucy dug in with enthusiasm, and I sat beside her, ready to refill her bowl. This is delicious. I'm so lucky to get to eat your cooking, Lucy exclaimed. She'd always been generous with her praise, always finding the good in me, always building me up. I'd always felt so at ease around her. Thinking back, after we got married, Jessica had never once complimented me. All she did was find fault with me and everything associated with me. Noticing my distant look, Lucy's eyes filled with concern. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, I offered her an apologetic smile, but she just gave me a knowing look. Thinking about the past again? Caught. I forced a smile, trying to act nonchalant. No, I was just wondering if there's enough rice left in the pot. If it were me, I would never make you sad, Lucy said suddenly. I froze. I was about to brush her off, but when I looked up and met her intense gaze, I could tell she was serious. I averted my eyes, the scent of her body wash filling my nostrils, not knowing what to say. But silence was a form of rejection. After a long moment, Lucy got up, returned to her seat, and resumed eating with gusto, pretending like nothing had happened. This tripe is perfectly crispy. Amazing. Even though she seemed back to her usual cheerful self, I could tell she was forcing it. Lucy, I'm sorry, I said. With a grain of rice stuck to her lip, she looked up, startled. It's okay. Don't say that. Her reaction made me laugh, and she stared at me for a moment before joining in. We talked for hours that day. She told me about her life over the past few years, traveling at home and abroad, stargazing on clear nights, exploring the desert under the moonlight. We talked until the sun began to set. At the door, Lucy lingered. Can I really not stay one more night? I shook my head firmly. The day before, it had been pouring rain when she was about to leave. She'd gotten drenched and had no change of clothes, so I'd let her stay in the guest room. As for Jessica's misunderstanding, I figured it didn't matter if she thought what she wanted. After Lucy left, I sat on the sofa, thinking about what she'd said at dinner. I could sense her feelings for me, but I didn't know how to respond. She was an amazing person, but I couldn't just rebound into a new relationship right after my marriage had fallen apart. That night, I couldn't sleep. After that, Lucy started showing up at my place early every morning, urging me to have breakfast so we could go shopping, watch movies, or head to the beach. She acted as if she'd never confessed her feelings, and I didn't bring it up either. Her words became a secret we both kept. The 30-day cooling-off period flew by. Jessica and I stood once again at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, but this time, everything was different. Lucy was by my side, while Jessica stood alone. Before the official stamped the divorce papers, Jessica looked at me hopefully. Ethan, I've thought a lot about us. If you don't want this, Jessica, I interrupted. Let's just get this done. Lucy and I have plans to go to the aquarium. Lucy. It's always Lucy. Jessica exploded at the mention of her name. I nodded. Yes, her. Jessica frowned, her eyes narrowing. You're rushing this divorce because of her, aren't you? You two have been sneaking around behind my back. I laughed, looking at her like she was crazy. Jessica, you were the one who gave me the divorce papers. Have you forgotten? Jessica froze, a flash of panic crossing her face. That was just because I was angry. Angry? A piece of paper that can end our marriage, our entire relationship, and you're telling me it was just because of a fit of anger. I didn't have the energy to argue. Talking to Jessica for one more second felt like a waste of my life. Whether she was angry or not didn't matter anymore. I just wanted to sever all ties with her as quickly as possible. Whatever. Jessica grabbed my hand, her voice almost desperate. Ethan, we don't have to do this. We were happy once, weren't we? My tone was dripping with sarcasm. Happy? Who was happy? Or do you mean you've suddenly realized you're madly in love with me and can't live without me? Jessica was speechless, finally hanging her head in defeat. Love you? How could I? The only one I love is Alex. I rolled my eyes. Great. Being loved by you would be a curse. The official stamped the divorce certificate, and Jessica and I were finally, truly over. Before I got into the car, Jessica ran over. Ethan, if I hadn't given you those divorce papers that day, would you have asked me for a divorce? I looked her straight in the eye, trying to find any trace of the woman I'd once loved, but there was nothing left. Jessica, we were always going to end. Love can't survive lies and betrayal. Even without those papers, even without Alex, our relationship was doomed. Jessica had loved me once, if only for a short while. So when that love died, I could feel it. Pretending otherwise was pointless. Lying to myself wouldn't change anything. Friends had booked a private room to celebrate my new-found singlehood, but then they had to work overtime, leaving Lucy and me alone, feeling a bit awkward. I noticed Lucy was being more cautious, not her usual carefree self. Maybe my gaze was too intense, because she gave an embarrassed laugh. Ethan, if this is uncomfortable, we can meet another time. In that moment, I realized that no matter how much we tried to ignore it, the impact of her confession was still there. If I didn't want to lose her, I had to face it. I wiped my mouth and suddenly said, Lucy. She jumped, startled, and sprayed shredded potatoes all over the table. Looking at her confused expression, I almost chickened out, but after a moment's hesitation, I forced the words out. You like me, don't you? Lucy's face turned bright red. She quickly glanced around, then reached out and touched my forehead. You're not feverish, are you? Are you delusional? I swatted her hand away, getting a bit irritated. When she saw I was serious, she reluctantly met my eyes. How did you know? I guessed. Lucy was silent for a few seconds. So what now? I'm sorry, I said. At my apology, Lucy probably knew what was coming. She lowered her head, a bitter smile on her lips. I can't even get chosen as a rebound. For some reason, seeing her so dejected made my heart ache. I sighed. It's not like that. I've always thought of you as my best friend, and I'm really grateful for everything you've done for me. But I just got out of a bad marriage, and I don't want to start something with you when my emotions are all over the place. Lucy looked up, her eyes determined. It's okay. I'll wait for you. After clearing the air, Lucy and I were able to hang out comfortably again. A few days later, I was lying in bed after dinner when my phone rang. It was Jessica. What do you want? I have something to tell you. Can you open the door? I was exasperated. Couldn't you just knock? I opened the door but blocked the entrance, not letting her in. Say what you have to say and make it quick. Jessica looked like a lost puppy. After a moment of silence, she pulled a gift box from behind her back. This is for you. The shirt you always wanted. I opened it, and it was identical to the one Alex had been wearing in the photo my friend had sent on my birthday. This shirt should be out of production by now. Where did you get it? Jessica hesitated. A personal shopper found it. I could smell the familiar perfume on it, and looked at her with disdain. Did you take it off Alex's back? Caught off guard. Jessica stared at me, stunned. How did you know? I sighed. Before the divorce, you made my life hell, and now you're still bothering me. Jessica clenched her fists, her eyes welling up. No, Ethan. I originally bought it for you. He just put it on. A wave of bitterness washed over me. We were divorced, and she was still lying to cover up for herself. Jessica, you're unbelievable. I stepped back, about to close the door. She panicked, putting her hand in the door gap. The pain made her eyes fill with tears immediately. Ethan, let me say one last thing. Tomorrow, Alex and I are going abroad. Can you really let me go? Just say you can't, and I'll stay for you. I stood there, refusing to look at her. Jessica, let's at least end this with some dignity. She laughed bitterly, leaning against the door frame, the laughter quickly turning into sobs. Suddenly, my WhatsApp pinged with a notification. Jessica snatched my phone, saw the contact name, and angrily threw it to the ground. I was shocked. What are you doing? Her eyes were bloodshot. If I can't have you, neither can she. Are you two together? Ethan, look at me. I'm hurting too. Why won't you look at me? Ethan, I'm not going abroad. I already turned Alex down. I'll stay here with you. Let's never be apart again, okay? I looked at her coldly. Get out. It was the first time I'd ever spoken to her like that. Jessica finally understood that there was no going back for us. After that day, I never saw her again. The following spring, I received a job offer from a major tech company. At the celebration party, I got a text message. Ethan, I'm sorry. I wish you happiness. I deleted the message calmly and went back into the private room, as if nothing had happened. My happiness was now in my own hands, and I was determined to live every day to the fullest from then on. The end.